This is a quick demonstration of Bit for React applications. Bit is a tool that enables you to compose applications from shareable components. These Bit components can be collaborated on individually using remote component hosting. With Bit, you'll be able to build applications faster, collaborate with others more effectively, and construct applications that are more modular and maintainable. We'll start by creating a new scope on BitCloud to host our Bit components. My organization is LearnBit, and I'll create a new scope called React Tutorial. I'll make my scope public, and I'll change its color and icon. We'll start by initializing a new Bit workspace. Bit comes with many workspace templates out of the box, but here I'll use the most basic one. Basic is the name of the template, my workspace is how I chose to name my workspace, and the default scope option specifies the default scope for components in my workspace. Keep in mind that you can configure different scopes for different components in your workspace if you want to. Our first component will be a simple React button. We'll use a pre-configured component template for React UI components. We'll name it button and add the namespace UI to indicate that it's a UI component. To keep this demonstration short and to the point, I'll skip the actual implementation of the button component, but you can examine the code for yourself in the remote scope. As you can see, my button component has 3 previews. Let's head over to this component's preview file or composition file to add another preview to it. Let's head over to the Dependencies tab to examine our component's dependencies. Two more tabs are worth mentioning at this point in the component development: the API reference, which is auto-generated by Bit, and the Overview tab, which shows the component documentation and can be extended and customized. Let's version our component and export it to BitCloud. We run bit tag, we'll add a message, first version. We can now export it using bit export. Great. Our component is now being built on BitCloud Ripple CI. The build steps for this component, which include testing, compiling, bundling the previews, generating the package, and so forth, are configured by the component itself. The CI is agnostic to the actual build steps. It would run whatever the component's build pipeline is. Now that the build is over, we can see our component in its remote scope. As you can see, our button can be used in 2 ways. It can be installed as a regular package, or it can be imported as a Bit component. You would import a component to your project if you're planning to modify it and release a new version of it. Let's head back to our workspace and create another component. We'll use one of Bit's out-of-the-box React templates to create our app component. An app component is a deployable component. In this context, it can be a standalone app or a microfrontend. When developing an app, you would most probably like to run the app outside the context of Bit's development server. To run our app, we'll use Bit's bitrun command. Let's add our button component to our app. Bit components use other bit components via the package name, not through relative path. This is true even in our case, where the two components are maintained by the same workspace. That's done to ensure that components are usable in any context, not just in the context of the workspace they were developed in. I'm using Bits extension to copy the package name of the button component. Now that our app is ready, let's version it and export it to BitCloud. As mentioned earlier, each Bit component can have a different build pipeline. Since this component is an app, it has two additional build steps. One to bundle the app, and another to deploy it. As you can see, our button component is not being rebuilt, and that's because it hasn't changed. If I were to modify it, Bit would build and version it before running the build for its dependent components, which in our case is the app. Now that our app is finally built, we can see it in the remote scope. Our app was configured to be deployed to Netlify. We can head over to the deployment URL to see our app live. That's it for this demonstration. I hope you found it helpful.